Some rooms remember. You step over the threshold and the air feels crowded, like a conversation just ended, but the words never left. Dust can be swept and windows opened, yet the mood lingers, a low hum beneath the furniture. What if that residue isn't imaginary, but the echo of what has been thought, said, and felt inside the walls? And what if cleansing a space isn't about chasing ghosts with good smells, but about teaching the room a new rhythm it can keep long after you stop playing? Tonight we'll explore how to cleanse a space so it stays clean, how to shift the tenor of a room not for an hour, but for seasons. We'll move beyond casual sage and pray routines and into an intentional architecture of energy. Ritual that rewrites the contract of the room, sound that retunes its hidden harmonics, smoke that carries instruction rather than perfume, and salt that seals the new pattern into the bones of the place. Think of it as spiritual carpentry. We aren't just wiping surfaces. We're adjusting the beams, the joins, the acoustic of the unseen. You'll learn why spaces accumulate charge the way lakes gather silt, and why some homes drink, cleansing while others spit it back. We'll map the difference between clearing, blessing, and warding, three distinct acts often blurred together, and we'll pair each with methods that actually hold. You'll receive a step-by-step rite you can adapt for an apartment, studio, or ancestral home. How to choose timing, create a threshold, set a governing intention, and move through the rooms in a sequence that makes sense to the subtle body of the house. By the end, you'll be able to listen to a space like a healer listens to a pulse, to sense where it is weak, where it leaks, and where it wants to sing. And more importantly, you'll know how to anchor the change. So the room keeps the melody when you stop chanting, the silence stays bright when the incense dies, and the door opens to a presence you recognize as your own. Every culture that kept a memory of the invisible learned to clean more than floors. In Vedic India, Vastu treated a dwelling like a living organism whose organs are doors, windows, hearth, and altar. When the breath of the house, pra, was obstructed, priests prescribed ritual fire and mantras to restore flow. In classical China, Feng Shui read the meander of qi through rooms as carefully as a physician reads pulses. A bell at the threshold or a wind chime at a stagnant corner was not decoration but medicine. Both traditions understood a simple truth. Space holds memory, and sound teaches it how to breathe again. The West remembered this in fragments. The Pythagoreans believed number and tone structure all things, the music of the spheres, not a metaphor but a claim about reality's grammar. If the cosmos is tuned, then your home can be retuned. A struck bell, a measured chant, or even the cadence of footfalls becomes a miniature act of cosmology. Hermetic texts later phrased it as above, so below. The microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. Clean the mirror, and the star returns to it. Smoke has been the oldest teacher. Frankincense and myrrh in North African and Near Eastern temples. Copal on Mesoamerican altars. Juniper in Himalayan homes. Each does more than scent the air. Smoke reveals currents. It curls where energy eddies, it rises straight where the field is clear. Ancient priests watched the drift like sailors watch wind, then paired it with invocation. The formula was consistent, scent to lift, word to guide. That pairing matters. Without meaning, smoke is perfume. With meaning, it becomes an instruction the room can learn. Salt is the quiet elder of purification. In Shinto practice, salt purifies thresholds, tools, and even new vehicles. In sumo, it is cast to bless the ring and declare boundaries. Medieval households laid lines of salt under sills. Desert caravans carried it not just to flavor meat, but to ward off thirsty spirits. Alchemy called salt one of the three primes: body, form, fixity. Where sulfur is fire and mercury is flow, salt is memory. Place salt and you ask the room to remember the new order you set. Remove it and the lesson fades. Traditions also distinguish three acts modern people blur. First is clearing, dispersing stagnation, the way wind empties a room of stale breath. Second is blessing, inviting a specific quality, peace, courage, devotion, so the vacuum left by clearing does not fill with the nearest noise. Third is warding, setting boundaries so the pattern holds. Churches swung censers and chanted psalms, clearing, sprinkled holy water and invoked saints, blessing, then sealed the doors with sign and symbol, warding. Shinto shrines enact harai, purification, install the kami, blessing, then mark sacred perimeter with Shimenawa rope, warding. Longevity comes from the trilogy, not a single act. Modern esotericism adds a psychological lens. A home is also an egregore, a collective thought form woven by the people who live there. Arguments, grief, devotion, music, and silence become threads in that subtle body. To cleanse a space that stays clean, you must address both atmospheres. The etheric, charge, rhythm, boundary, and the human, habit, story, intention. Otherwise, you mop the tide while the moon still pulls. So our work stands on old ground. We use sound to retune, smoke to reveal and uplift, salt to remember and protect, and ritual speech to give the room a new name. Not superstition, but an applied metaphysic. Change the pattern, and the pattern changes you. Say next, and we'll begin to map these elements into a practice the house can keep. Before technique, understand what you're cleaning. A space is not empty volume. It is a woven field with 3 layers. First is tone, the ambient hum created by materials, light, and daily activity. Second is memory, the imprints left by repeated emotion and meaning. Third is boundary, the edge where the room decides what it allows and what it refuses. Most quick cleanses, scrub the tone for an hour, ignore memory, and never touch boundary. A clean that stays clean must address all 3 in sequence. Think of a home as a subtle body with organs. Thresholds are the mouth. Everything enters and leaves there. Corners are the lungs. Energy pools in them the way breath collects at the bottom of an exhalation. Ceilings and floors are sky and earth, the vertical current. Hearth or workspace is the heart, the generator of coherence. Mirrors and windows are eyes. They reflect and project. Drains and vents are exits. They carry sorrows if you ask them to. Metal and glass conduct. Fabric and books absorb. When you cleanse, you're not waving smoke at nothing. You're adjusting organs. All architecture follows an idea. Your ritual needs one too. A governing intention expressed in a single, present tense line the room can remember. This dwelling is a sanctuary of clarity and steady joy. Not a plea, not a shopping list, an identity. You do not force the space, you name it the way ancient rites named kings and ships. Everything you do will reinforce this line so the house keeps repeating it when you're not there. Next, build ritual architecture. Establish a center and a perimeter. The center can be a candle, a bowl of water, a small stone. Something that says, here is the axis. The perimeter is traced by movement, by breath, or by a thin whisper of salt around the room. Direction matters. Move counterclockwise to unmake patterns, banishing, and clockwise to install new ones, invoking. Time supports you. Dusk favors release. Dawn favors renewal. These are not superstitions. They are rhythm choices that the body understands before the mind agrees. Now the instruments. Sound does 3 jobs when used in order. Percussive sound, firm clapping, a frame drum, knocking, breaks coagulation, like loosening soil. Tonal sound, bell, chime, singing bowl, gathers the loosened fragments into a coherent uplift, like a magnet organizing filings. Voice, mantra, psalm, sacred name, or a steady declarative sentence, instructs the field, like the foreman setting the blueprint. Used out of order, you stir and perfume without teaching. Used in order, you retrain the room. Smoke is not an air freshener. It is a carrier wave for meaning. Each plant family carries a profile. Resins like frankincense lift and sanctify. Woods like Palo Santo, ethically sourced only, and juniper warm and guard. Kitchen herbs like rosemary, bay, and thyme clarify and cut through stagnation. Choose the character that supports your intention and pair it with words. Move slowly enough to watch the smoke read the air. Eddies mark blind spots. Straight rises mark clarity. Where smoke hesitates, pause and teach the space with tone and voice until the drift smooths. Salt addresses boundary and memory. Coarse salt absorbs and fixes. In practice, a pinch in each corner overnight draws out heaviness. A line across the threshold declares terms of entry. A small bowl of salt water on an altar or near electronics drinks static and agitation. Salt is literal earth. It remembers the agreement. But salt also needs courtesy. Don't leave it to fester. Gather what has done its work and return it to flowing water or bury it away from roots. The message is, the old pattern goes out, the new pattern stays in. Notice how these pieces map to the 3 layers. Percussive sound and smoke clear tone. Voice and intention rewrite memory. Salt and directional movement reinforce boundary. If any one layer is skipped, the house reverts. You'll know which layer needs emphasis by how the room answers. The claps sound dull or stick, tone is congested. If the room brightens but sours again after a day, memory is unaddressed. If everything feels good until certain guests arrive, boundary is too polite. This is the skeleton of a cleanse that holds. Name the dwelling, set center and edge, unmake, retune, instruct, and seal. In the next section, we'll go deeper into sequence, how to make a diagnostic pass, how to route your walk so the house exhales properly, and how to bind the new pattern to daily habit so the change becomes the room's reflex. Begin with a diagnostic pass, no tools, just presence. Stand at the threshold and breathe until you feel your own field settle. Otherwise, you'll mistake your weather for the house's. Walk the perimeter of each room slowly. Listen to your footsteps. Floors that drink sound mark congestion. Places where your shoulders rise unbidden mark pressure. Clap once in each corner and midwall. Note where the clap lands dull and where it rings. Hold a small flame, a tea light on a saucer, at chest height and move gently. If the flame gutters or bends repeatedly in a spot with no draft, there's turbulence. You aren't judging, you're mapping. Choose one exit for stale charge, a window, a back door, even a bathroom fan, and greet it as the house's lungs. Sequence matters. For clearing, move from the deepest, least used places toward your chosen exit, bedrooms to hallway, hallway to living room to door, so the house exhales in one direction. Multi-story homes clear top to bottom, heat and subtle debris rise, then spiral to the exit. Apartments begin at the farthest interior wall from the front door. For installing the new pattern, reverse. Start at the center you established and move outward, clockwise, knitting the field to the edges. Think tide and return, outflow, then inflow. Now refine the instruments. Percussive sound should be assertive but not violent. Strike the corners, door frames, and under tables where energy hides like dust bunnies. If the room holds grief or trauma, begin with soft percussive, palms, a padded beater, so you loosen without shocking. Follow quickly with tonal sound, one bell note or bowl tone per wall, letting it fully fade before the next so the room learns to sustain coherence. Finally, voice. Recite your governing line in the present tense, or use a short mantra that embodies the quality you're installing. Speak as if you are teaching a child to breathe. Steady, patient, certain. Smoke and no smoke paths both work. If using botanicals, choose local and ethical when possible. Rosemary, pine, bay, juniper, frankincense or copal resins, cedar shavings. Avoid overharvested woods. The spirit of a plant taken without consent rarely purifies. If smoke isn't suitable, allergies, pets, lease rules. Substitute steam and scent. Simmer citrus peels with bay and clove and carry the pot room to room, or use hydrosols. Rose for harmony, cedar for protection, in a fine mist. Pair with the same words. The carrier changes, the instruction does not. Salt works on edges and memory. After clearing tone with sound/smoke, place a pinch of salt in each corner, on a small paper or dish with the line, "What does not belong returns to its source." Leave overnight, then gather and release to running water or bury away from roots. Lay a thin line of salt across the threshold while stating entry terms. Only what serves clarity and steady joy may pass. When you later shift to invitation, sweep the salt up and replace with a ward. A chalk sigil, a discreet cord, a sprig of rosemary bound with red thread. Anything that says, "The pattern holds." Remember, wards declare terms, not fear. Address nuance. Over-cleansing can strip a room until it feels sterile, like a hospital at midnight. If you feel emptiness after a strong purge, You cleared tone but didn't bless memory. Fill the room. Music you love at low volume, a bowl of fruit, a prayer or poem repeated morning and evening. The first pages of a new journal started at the altar. Conversely, if the space brightens but resours within days, your habits are rewriting the field. Anchor with micro-rituals. 3 bell strikes at dawn. A hand to heart and the governing lines spoken at the threshold. 1 long exhale at the sink as the day's residue washes down the drain. Small is strong when it is daily. Shared homes require consent-friendly language. If residents hold different beliefs, avoid deity names. Speak qualities instead. This home is restful, honest, and kind. Invite others to contribute a small symbol to the center, stone, photo, leaf, so the egregore includes them and therefore protects itself. For sensitive neighbors and animals, keep volume gentle and windows cracked. The aim is coherence, not spectacle. Finally, timing. Dusk is ideal for release, new moon for deep reset, full moon for sealing and blessing. But the most potent timing is the one you will keep. A short, consistent weekly tune, 15 mindful minutes, outperforms a grand annual purge. When you see the house as a learner, contradictions resolve. You don't fight bad vibes. You retrain reflexes. You don't guard from paranoia. You set clear terms and keep promises. The room becomes an ally with memory. Here is a complete rite you can adapt for any home. Read it through once, gather your tools, then move with steady attention. 1. Prepare the field. Choose timing, dusk to release, dawn to renew. Write your governing line in present tense. This dwelling is a sanctuary of clarity and steady joy. Gather a candle, a small bowl of water with a pinch of salt, a bell or chime, a glass gently struck also works. Your hands for clapping, a cleansing botanical, smoke, steam or hydrosol, coarse salt, a simple ward for the door, sprig of rosemary, red thread, chalk sigil, a trash bag, and a soft cloth. Crack a window at your chosen exit. 2. Establish center and edge. Create a small center. Candle lit, saltwater bowl beside it. Touch the door frame and quietly state your line. With a fingertip of salt water, trace a small circle on your heart, then on the floor beneath the candle. Here is the axis. Whisper a thin line of salt along the baseboards or simply walk the room once to mark the perimeter with breath. 3. Diagnostic pass. Walk slowly. Breathe until you settle. Clap once at each corner and listen. Note dull spots, pressure points, or places your shoulders lift. This is your map. 4. Clearing pass. Unmake. Move counterclockwise from the farthest room toward the open window/door. At corners, door frames, under tables, use percussive sound, firm claps or a frame drum, to loosen heaviness. Follow with smoke, steam, or mist. Watch the drift. Pause where it hesitates. If you can, speak a short release line. Old patterns loosen and depart. At the chosen exit, fan the air outward 3 times. Wipe light switches, handles, and screens with a barely damp cloth. These are touch memory points. Empty the cloth water down a drain with gratitude, or outdoors away from roots. 5. Blessing pass. Install. Return to the center. Now move clockwise, room by room. Ring 1 clear bell note per wall and let it fully fade. With each note, speak your governing line once, steady and calm. Lightly asperge, flick salt water across thresholds and beds. Place a small symbol of the quality you invite. A bowl of fruit for abundance, a book for wisdom, a fresh flower for renewal, a photo that tells the truth about love. Keep it simple, meaning is the force. 6. Seal and ward, hold. At the main threshold, lay a thin line of salt, then speak the terms. Only what serves clarity and steady joy may enter. Sweep the salt up after a few minutes and replace it with your ward, sprig, sigil, or cord. Place a pinch of salt in each corner on a paper square overnight with the line, "What does not belong returns to its source." In the morning, gather and release the salt into running water or bury it away from roots. 7. Anchor with habit. Daily. 1 bell strike at the center, hand to heart at the door, Speak the line once when you leave and once when you return. Weekly, 15 minutes, a quick counterclockwise clap-through and a clockwise bell and line pass. Monthly, new moon, repeat the full rite more gently. Small is strong when it is consistent. 8. Troubleshooting. If the home feels too empty after clearing, you strip tone but didn't feed memory. Add low music, warm light, and a short evening gratitude sentence. If the room resours within days, a habit is rewriting the field. Place a bowl of salt water near electronics or the entry for 24 hours. Change it the next day. Sensitive lungs? Use hydrosols or simmered citrus-based steam instead of smoke. Shared beliefs? Use quality words, not deity names. Nightmares or restless sleep? Focus on the bed's four corners, the headboard, and underbed space. Add a small ward behind the headboard. You have now taught the house a rhythm it can keep without you. A house is not an object you own. It is a field you keep. Over these steps you've learned to read and rewrite that field. To feel its tone, address its memory, and set its boundary. You've learned the old trilogy: clear, bless, ward, and the instruments that make it hold. Percussive sound loosens what has congealed. Tonal sound gathers the fragments into coherence. Voice instructs the pattern so it remembers you when you're silent. Smoke reveals and uplifts. Salt fixes and protects. Direction matters. Timing matters. Above all, the governing line matters, the name you give the dwelling, spoken as a truth already alive. Remember the sequence. Begin with a diagnostic pass so you don't mistake your weather for the rooms. Clear from the depths to the chosen exit, then install from the center out. Seal the threshold and teach the house its terms of welcome. After the rite, feed the new pattern with small, dependable offerings. One bell at dawn, one sentence at the door, one breath down the drain at day's end. Ritual makes the change. Habit makes it last. Your next step is simple. Choose one room, write one present tense line. This space is clear, honest, and kind. And give it 15 uninterrupted minutes. Walk the counterclockwise release, the clockwise blessing, and set a modest ward. Tonight, notice what shifts. How your shoulders sit at the table, how the corners feel when the lights are low, how sleep holds you. Tomorrow, listen to the bell's decay after a single strike. Coherence is audible. As you cleanse, you'll meet your own patterns reflected back. Spaces do not just store what happens, they train what happens next. When a room becomes easier to keep clean, watch how conversations simplify, how decisions clarify, how your attention spends itself more wisely. This is not decoration. It is governance of place, of mood, of destiny. If the sacred is anywhere, it is first at home. Teach your rooms to breathe, and they will teach you how to live there. Light the candle. Speak the line. Begin.